you're more than welcome to stay for this and participate. But we're going to talk a little bit about town government.
Willis, you want to take my list?
We have to move to accept the minutes and stuff.
Can do that after. I can't even find my agenda.
Willis is going shopping.
We had put out an invitation to a number of folks. Also did a little publication, but the and I'll find this in a minute. Well, we wanted to talk a bit about the town charter, town government, what people were seeing, feeling, should we, shouldn't we look at doing something from a perspective of charter commission. I think the charter reads today that the selectmen every 10 years will create a charter commission. It hasn't quite been 10 years since the original charter, although it probably started in and around 2000, the discussion. It has had one revision in 2003, 2004.
2004.
Oh,
We had the last one.
which would have been a 2003 charter commission. We made some revisions, as most of you may recall, that were minor in nature. Last year at the ballot box, the referendum election during the November election, which changed or allowed the town to run municipal elections in conjunction with the state elections in June, or a state election, I guess, doesn't necessarily say June, but prior to that, there was a requirement that the municipal elections run on Friday and the town meeting would be on a Saturday. So that gave us some flexibility there. We also changed the number of committee members. Some were as high as 9, and I think we dropped them back to 5 because of the just the inability to get 9 active bodies involved in a committee. So I'd like to, kind of maybe just free form this, and we'll take input or comments or whatever, but I really think the real mission here is that, because we struggle, I think in the past few years we did have a couple of votes for charter, to create a charter commission, to relook at the town charter. Those did not pass, and that's subsequently why some of the administrative changes that we made, we took to a referendum vote in lieu of going back through a charter commission. And it may very well be that there's a lot of contentment with what we have today, and we don't move forward with a charter commission, or at least an attempt to do a charter commission. So that being said, and I know there's some probably we don't lack for opinions in this town, so and we'll take whatever anybody has to offer, but any thoughts relative to what it is that this current structure is good and does good for the town, or does and what maybe it is somewhat dated, and maybe it's time to move on to do something different. I'm just throwing that out there for food for thought more than anything else. So, opinions. Anybody? This will be a very short forum.
And you suggesting a change to the council?
No, I think. Well, if I think that's really what, not necessarily specific to say, should we? I guess the question is, should we look at or should, is there a need to say, maybe it's time to look at the structure of town government? I don't think anybody, because if a charter commission is elected, is formed and elected, they ultimately will make the recommendations, and they will take public input of, hey, what do you want to see? Is it a council town manager? Is it a board of selectmen town manager, town administrator? If you start to look at, those kind of things, if you look at what happened in the first commission, was really the first time that we had a town meeting vote that allowed a couple of town meeting votes, right? Way back, I say way back, it was in the 90s, right? We went from elected town clerk, tax collector, and it was before that, actually, in the 80s, we went from an elected town clerk, an elected town treasurer, an elected tax collector, and combine those into one position. That was a vote of town meeting. We then went to another town meeting vote, which was in the 90s, where that went from being 3 elected positions to being one person with those 3 functions to appointing those positions, other than the town clerk, right? Or did we do all 3 of them? I think we did all 3 of them, right?
There wasn't appointed until the charter came in.
Okay, until the charter came, all right, okay. But it was, I think we had the deputy, you were town clerk, and then we had deputies, and then you were, whatever. So we went from 3 to 1, right? The charter also put in place a town administrator as a position. Did not establish a number of committees, which now is probably somewhat dated, even though we have by charter Conservation Commission, it's the first one comes to mind. We don't have people that are actively participating or have a conservation committee, right? We now have a EDC that's not really addressed in the charter, other than that the Board of Selectmen had the authority to do that. There's some talk about, we still have a road commissioner. Other communities have, a road department or a road foreman or whatever the case may be. We've talked about a public works manager that would look at not only roads, but municipal buildings and maybe even a transfer station. But, so there's a lot of things that kind of get kicked around, and there's never any real structure to that other than, gee, would it be nice, or should we do this, or shouldn't we do that? So I think all we're looking for, because, we have this sense that we know that there are some issues with the charter that minimize the flexibility, and I'm not saying that oh gee, that the board wants to do and have more control. I think it's just, we're not, and the perfect example was when we had to have the municipal election. So in 2008, we had a SAD 57 vote, we had a primary vote, and we had a town meeting vote, all within 7 days of one another or something like that, right? All separate votes. So and we did not have the flexibility to move that. We took that to referendum. We've changed that. So there are some things inherently as time goes on that are they minor in nature? Are they significant? Does it require a change to this town structure or town government? Some of those would be yeses, some of those would be nos, but, and then you look back and you say, okay, we got a town meeting, form of government, where, 3,000 registered voters plus, right?
4,000.
4,000 registered voters, and we're very fortunate to get 100 to a town meeting. And I think that even goes back probably 15 years or more. Doesn't matter whether it's in March, April, or June, okay? The thing that will change attendance at town meeting or seems to be the only thing that'll change attendance at town meeting, is controversy. Right? Get a lot of controversy, a lot of emotion, you get a bigger turnout, all right? And I don't know as we want to do that by design, to say, let's put something in that's controversial so we get a big turnout. But you kind of look at it that, what is driving what is really driving the participation that we have today, or lack of participation.
And there
Is
was
it-
also discussion to put it as referendum.
Right. And the other thing is that there are, the way that it is written today, you can't take a money article to a referendum vote. So, I won't say, I don't want to use the word groping, but I think we're looking for a general, or at least a feel from, and maybe it's, maybe
Actually, you can take a money article, it's the budget you can't.
that's right, the budgeting piece of it.
Thank you, right, Dennis. And a lot of the input for moving forward with a charter commission isn't so much about changing the town government structure, but taking a look at what has happened over the past years as I have watched these selectmen's meetings and the times that you haven't had the flexibility and you've struggled to work around issues. I don't know that a charter commission is something that has to do a complete restructuring, but yet more of a tuning to try to bring in the more common sense issues that would bring you flexibility.
I think you'll find too that when you talk about complete restructuring, that there's more than one controversial issue that comes up, then the chances are exponential that it will fail. So if you are looking at some small changes, some tweaking and things like that, and you deal with one fairly controversial issue, and you realize through your polling and through your working with people in town that there's probably about 65% that are for that, then you're going into the Charter Commission's recommendation with a pretty good feeling that it's going to pass. But you have 2 or 3 issues on that. There's 60% are for each one of them. Now you go in, and all that 60% are not for all 3. They're for one particular item, and it's going to go down. So I think as a commission starts to work together, they look and say, not only do we agree that maybe some major changes need to happen, and maybe more than one of them, but you don't do it with one charter commission. You can only make one major change, I think, effectively with one charter.
Yeah, I think charter commissions have had their, the trials and tribulations, not necessarily in this town, but I mean, you look at, probably the most publicly talked about charter commission of late is Portland, right? Where, should we have an elected mayor, and is a mayor more than just a figurehead in one of the council? And I know that they're playing that out, and you hear, that seems to be what the talking heads want to talk about. And that charter commission proposed you didn't have to be a resident in town to vote, which I'm not sure whether that went too far on the charter commission. But those are the kind of things that, kind of crop up, and it's all free game, if you want to use that phrase, when you open the door and you say we have a charter commission, because they will look at, if the charter commission is active and participating and trying to pull in input from the community, they will look at all aspects of that issue. We've got towns that have elected finance boards or elected planning board members. We have not done that. And I don't even know if anybody ever really beat that drum at all. I've never heard that, gee, we ought to have elected finance committee members or budget committee members. But and maybe we're just, this is what we've got, and this is what people are content with, and you move on.
Well, I can, and we've been talking about this for quite a while, the issues that you brought up as far as a road commissioner versus having a person that's appointed that may be a director of public works. Our road commissioners the positive part of the road commissioner is voted by people that trust a particular person and that feel that person knows roads and be able to can get the job done. And so there's a trust issue and an issue of knowing the person and liking the person and knowing that they can, or feeling that they can do the job. Now the job over the years has become, it's getting up into $1 million plus. And so now, and you also have transfer station, and you've got community buildings. You're talking about big money that's involved in this. So no longer is it just a person that knows how to construct roads or knows how to run a recycling program at the transfer station, but it also becomes a management issue, a money management issue. So in looking at hiring a person that's a director of public works, you're looking not only at a person that can, you might have people that are overseeing certain projects, but you're having a person that's dealing with the money and dealing with a couple $1 million or $1.5 million, and budgeting and going through the management type stuff. So that, I think, is one of the issues that should be looked at pretty closely.
Doug, you were here when it was a 3-man board in a charter, and it grew to a 5-man board in a charter, right? And that was part of the charter commission, second charter commission, right? You must have an opinion one way or the other of what's good, bad, and ugly in the
I probably have more opinions than anybody knows. A 3-member board is far more functional than a 5. And since this 5-member board has gone in, I'll bet there's been 4 to 1 people that have talked to me that said, we wish we'd have kept a 3-man board. Getting back to your question, Dennis, about committees being elected or appointed, that was discussed at great length, and I'm kind of discouraged that I'm the only person here that sat on the charter commission. I don't know if everybody on it got invited to this meeting, but I talked to Deb Wentworth, who was chair, and as of last week, she didn't know anything about it. I called and asked her if she'd been invited, and she said no, hadn't received anything. But we did talk at great lengths about elected and appointed, and half and half, and then some type of qualifications to be on these boards. And many of you have served on boards, and it's very difficult to serve on boards with people who think that they can do a great job, and they're good people, but it overwhelms them. Many people get on committees in town and they're overwhelmed. Many people get on committees in town and they find out that it takes way more time than they ever thought it was going to take. They find that if you're dedicated, it takes a lot of time. As all of you know, as being a selectman in this town, this is not a 2-hour-a-week job. If you're dedicated to the job, you might be here 4 or 5 nights in 1 week. And, that's the same thing with people serving on committees. They get discouraged because they feel like sometimes they never get anything done. If you want to bring up a charter committee to improve on the basis that you have now, that would, probably be acceptable. But if you want to get a charter committee to change town government, I think you're going to run into another stone wall. We talked a lot about elected road commissioner. Right now, I think, and appointed. And when you go into an elected public works director, an appointed public works director, you've got to figure to make a very significant capital investment in this town. What good is it gonna do to hire a person that's competent to be a public works director? Now, you're talking somebody either with many years' experience or somebody with some kind of a civil degree in engineering. It's gonna be another $50,000 to $75,000 a year position. What is this person going to do? You're gonna give them a chainsaw and have them cut brush? You're gonna give them a set of clippers? Or are you gonna give them some employees? And if you're gonna give this person employees, then what are these employees gonna do? Are you gonna buy equipment so that you can do all your own work? You're gonna plow all your own snow? You're gonna do all your own building maintenance? Are you gonna put all the maintenance of the buildings under this person's direction? Whatever you decide to do, some of that, is gonna cost you money. And so far, we also looked into that to see, just general terms, how much money it was gonna cost. And if you look at, we went to Arundel, got some figures on what it cost Arundel to run their public works department. Arundel also has school buses, so the people at the public works work on the school buses. And, they have more of a combination town than we do. We don't have anything to do with the school buses. So what are you gonna do with look at the budget that you approved this year for roads. And say you had 4 people. You got let's just say a $50,000 public works director, which, if you look at them, most of you will find it getting significantly more than that, But if you had a $50,000 one, and then you've got 3 $35,000 or $40,000 employees, you got $170,000 right there. That's in salaries without benefits. What are they gonna do? You got 1 town tractor. You don't even own a pickup truck. So you're gonna buy trucks. Are these people gonna work with the fire department? Are you gonna get them cross-trained so if we need people at the fire department, they can go? Are they gonna work on the rescue? Are these people gonna do the maintenance here at the town hall? Are they gonna do the cleaning here at the town hall? And then what do you do in the winter when they're busy plowing snow? Then who's gonna clean the town hall? Who's gonna go on rescue calls? So, changing that position over is a lot more than just changing from elected to appointed.
I don't think anybody's suggesting that any change is just a simple, let's go do this and flip the switch. And I think whatever is looked at has to be looked at very, very thoroughly, because they all have ramifications associated with them. It's not, it's not as simple as saying, gee, that sounds like a great idea, let's go do it, because there's a lot of tentacles that hang off from that thing.
I mean, right now, you're having trouble, I assume you're having trouble, I keep seeing where there's openings on all of these boards. And, maybe if we went to a system where all of the boards had a partial elected and a partial appointed membership, you might fill your boards up, because more people might come out of the woodwork and say, I'll run for it. And then again, maybe nobody will come out. If they don't sign up, who says they're gonna decide they wanna get voted in? And I've heard a lot of general discussion, well, we should get rid of the finance committee. Board of Selectmen can do that without the finance committee. I've heard that before the charter was written, and I've heard it since the charter was written. And, there's, the Road Review Committee became a committee of the charter. Before that, it was just at the will of the Board of Selectmen. The Conservation Commission now, should that be joined with some other commission so that we at least had a commission? I think it was a good thing when the Taylor House and the Historical Society was, became a joint venture. Seems to be working out all right. I just think it needs a lot of thought. And I think if rumors in this town have a tendency, more people have been killed by rumors in town than world wars. And, you know, it's killed charter committees too, because rumors have done a lot. And I didn't know that these rumors were correct, or rather they were incorrect, but, you know, I think the thought that we need a town manager, that we need a town council, that we need a full-time public works director, you know, is the public works director gonna take over Parks and Rec? I mean, I've heard that rumor, that, you know, so I can tell you one thing right now, Mike does a good job at Parks and Rec, but I'd certainly hate like hell to see him road commissioner. I couldn't imagine it. You know what I mean?
We could put a plow on his bus.
We don't need that picture.
You know? I don't think he'd like it all that well either.
No.
He'd look some funny in his sandals plowing snow. You know,
Well, the
there's
one
just-
thing that, I mean, the questions that Doug asked, and there was, you know, there's a bunch of questions there, and you, Dennis, put out a whole bunch of questions beforehand. I mean, that's what a charter commission does, is try to come up and look at the complexities of the issues and the pros and cons, and then decides which ones go out for more discussion with the populace at large. And then after that, you know, it's a long, hard process. You were on it before. And then when finally you get it milked down to what is recommendations, then it goes to the people to be voted on. So it goes through a whole bunch of processes, but what I've heard here is a whole bunch of questions. Do you this? This is some of the complexities. Well, that charter commission goes through all those complexities, along with public hearings. So it's a process that I think probably it would be good to go through that process. It's probably a year, 2 years in order to get through it. But a lot of these issues that were brought up and the questions that Doug asked and that were brought up need to be answered the best way you possibly can. So we should be working on those.
I think with the charter commission, I think it's 1 year. And
Well, I don't remember off the top of my
I
head.
think it's
Nancy,
1
but
year.
there's a very, very specific timetable. You have a certain timetable to operate in, and then once the charter commission makes its recommendation, you only have a window of opportunity before that can go to the voters, and it's not a long window. I mean, this whole thing, if it seems to me, I thought, was either 18 or 24 months from conception to vote. That is a very, it's very specific under state law. You can't have a charter commission and then say, okay, we've got these recommendations, now we're gonna settle on them for a while. So from the time you appoint your charter commission or elect your charter commission, and if you're gonna do it, are you gonna appoint it, or are you gonna start off by saying, okay, we'll have part elected and part appointed? So if you do that, I don't recall a procedure for doing that. That's the way it was before, right? You had part elected and part appointed. You have to go to the voters. You have to go to the voters and ask permission to form a
charter commission.
charter commission. And then at the next scheduled, I'm sure it says right in the charter how this all works, but then at the next scheduled election, then you start. And I don't think that it can necessarily, once you ask permission, I don't think that the election to elect these people, to have it ready for a town meeting vote. I think it's like if you do it in April, I think you ask for permission in April, I think you've got to appoint them, or they got to be elected in November, and then they have like 18 months.
The state law changed, and once you vote to establish, you have, and there's some debate of whether it's still 200 days, because they changed it to 200 days to
It
give
used to be
some
180.
flexibility. No, it wasn't, it was like,
It was the same
it
election.
was the same election, right?
Oh, I remember, you had to run, and if it got voted on one article, then you got, the election went forward, if it didn't, it was denied. Then they changed it after that.
They changed it to 200
6 months.
days.
It's like 6 months.
Right, 200 days, and when you look at it, it works, if you voted in June, you could elect charter commission members in November, but if you vote in November, you can't elect charter commission members in June because it's too far away. So there was a couple of bills submitted to change that this year, and I'm not sure what happened.
The timeframe on charter commission, according to the law, is within the first 30 days, you have to have held a public meeting. Within 9 months, you have to have a preliminary report, and the final report and vote needs to occur within 12 months.
That's what it was, yeah.
So from the time you take a vote, about 18 months, we use a 200-day limit that Dennis is talking about. From the time that the people approve it, it's about 18 months until it comes to fruition.
Yep, I think the countdown starts when they're elected, because I think the town clerk within 30 days has to call the meeting.
Yeah, but I mean, if you elect them in June, if you vote to have a charter commission in June, you elect the people in November, then not the first April, but the following April, it would be on the agenda, right?
No, the following.
Following
no,
town meeting, I think.
Following
Well,
November.
or, yeah, you would have until the following November to put the recommendations to a vote.
So if we started all in November, then you'd have after June to do it.
Right.
June or something.
So, I mean, I think what we're looking for is do we go forward again with establishing or attempting to establish a charter commission? And, you know, I think you don't hear a lot of stuff on the street, basically, of, gee, we ought to change this, or we ought to change that. Certainly, there's always, you know, the one or two comments that we hear, but there's not an overwhelming message, I guess, out there that says, hey, we need to do something to change the town. I think the frustration on our part is, how do we get more people involved in the decision-making process, be it town meeting or those things. And I think we look to referendum votes that would at least extend that to the biggest opportunity, right, of voters, be it November or be it a June primary or those kind of things. But town meeting still becomes town meeting. And
Dennis, do you think that the economic conditions at this time, being what they are, would affect a lot of people's decision on how they would vote to make changes to our form of government or to the charter? I mean, we'll take, for instance, going to a public works director. You know, people could very easily say, you know, yes, we'd like to do that, but we can't afford it. So
I think you're right. Yeah, I mean,
I certainly think that you know, that the selectmen, you know, should look at the charter over carefully, and maybe there ought to be some thing like a town government committee appointed that would just look at, not a charter commission, a town government committee, something that the Board of Selectmen could appoint to look over town government. Doesn't have any authority, it just comes back with some ideas, some meetings could be held, and maybe before you went to a charter commission, your town, you know, your town committee could have some real ideas to put forward to support the charter commission update.
yeah, I think we batted that around a little bit a few months ago, and there was like a pre-charter commission, or whatever the case may be. So But somehow, whether you do it through this forum, whether you say, we just want to appoint a task force to go out and kind of poke at some of this stuff, because there's no sense of going and doing something if, in fact, there's the general will of the people is, hey, leave everything the way it is, right? I mean,
You know, I don't think you know that until you explore it. And when you look at it, I mean, one issue such as the Director of Public Works, say, so that may be a $65,000 a year job. And you say, does that $65,000 justify the position? Well, if indeed the structure changes, then the $65,000 might actually save you money if it's explored in a certain way, the whole restructuring of things, that it may actually save money. But you don't know that until you really examine it. So the question kind of comes up is that, as Doug came up with, do you get a group of interested citizens that are willing to do a little bit of research here and come up with some information that you can give to a charter commission and go forward and say, okay, let's see if the people want a charter commission next June, and to vote on the people next November. In the interim, we'll explore a few major issues and get some information as to whether it seems to be viable or not.
I get, Dennis,
yep.
I guess my concern is, before we start looking at a charter change or anything like that, or a commission, I think that we should probably take a look at some of the issues that we have now and fix those issues one at a time. I also think we're going so many different angles.
Well, I think you're right, Chris, but I think what you have to put into context here is some of those you can't fix one at a time.
But
Because
the biggest one,
But
yeah.
it takes a charter commission to make those changes.
Right, but the issues I'm specifically talking about is our biggest issue in our town, and that's our transfer station.
Mhm.
I think if we all put our heads together and work hard, we can fix that problem. But I think we're just not all working together to get it fixed. And that's our biggest expense. And we should set it as a goal that we fix that problem. And if we fix that problem, we may find that there's money out there now that we can go and look at possibly having a public works. But
I don't think the structure of what is all about, hey, how do we, there's some consolidation that could happen with department consolidation or whatnot, but it's not all about, hey, is this going to save money? It's, hey, is a government or structural government change required that is going to put us in a better position as we go forward as a municipality in the future? I think that's one of the things that has to be poked at, right? Yes, there's always the thing of how do we control cost, how do we better control that, how can we take, $250,000 out of the transfer station and put that into roads, because we've done some good things in the transfer station to reduce costs or offset costs or whatever the case may be. There's always that juggling of the balls in the air, right?
Well, I do understand what you're saying, but what I'm saying is before we start getting ourselves away from what our real problem is in town is the transfer station, why don't we solve that problem? Why do we have to start opening up other cans of worms and creating more work for ourselves in other areas instead of just let's solve that one, and then let's take a look at what's going on in our government. But that is a huge issue.
Diane?
I think my thoughts of sitting here and listening to this is that, use John's word here, the tweaking of some of the things that would be helpful to the board to do their work. No matter what, you're looking at probably 2 years out before you can make the changes, and then maybe if you do start the process now, there may be a few other things that come up before next April when you have a working board, which is almost another year away. And how long do you want to go without these tweaks and have your hands tied on not doing some of the things that you have to do? I mean, I know there's discussions here about the road supervisor or whatever you want to call it, but my main focus would be on things to let the board do their job easier and not have their hands tied on certain things.
I think the fundamental question has probably been taken out of our hands to begin with already with the charter. If the time limit, as Dennis said, you have to have a charter commission every 10 years, then I think the charter has already dictated that we're going to have one. Now, the fact that there was changes made in 2003, does that change the date and then make it 2013 as the 10-year date, or do we go back to the origination of the charter? If it's the origination of the charter, then I think if we're going to follow the charter, then we have to have a charter commission. So it's just simply a matter of saying, yes, it's going to go on the ballot, should we or shouldn't we, and then do it because that's what the charter says. And to go along with what John has to say, I think that it's always wise to review any type of policy or document periodically to make sure that it is up to date, that it is current with changes in law, that it is current with changes in technology that may occur, that may impact different positions within the municipality. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to restructure government in order to have a charter commission. It may be that, the way the government is fine. It's just some of the things that they're able to do or not able to do are those things that need to be changed.
The other comment that I meant to make was too, when something was said about economy, we're certainly in a different economy today than we were 2 years ago. We're going to be in another economy 2 years from now. And we don't have a crystal ball, we have no control over it. But I think if you keep pushing this out, you're still, when you need that help to make a decision or do whatever, you got to wait 2 years to do it. So at least take care of the ones that, that are having your hands tied now. And I think, even every 5 years, I agree with Gordon, you have to, really, 10 years is a long time to go, especially with the charter. You may want to relook at it every 5.
Well, I'll answer Gordon, because he spoke last, then I'll go to John. But, our zoning ordinance has specific time schedules in it when it will be reviewed. That got thrown out the window, nobody gave a dime whether it got reviewed or not, so it hasn't been reviewed and updated. And John, you say that we should do these things, and now might be the time. If you're using a ball game, seems to me like you're one ball and 2 strikes in the last of the ninth, because you've struck out twice, okay? So I don't think your average is in your favor of this being approved by the people just because the Board of Selectmen want it, because, there better be some real reasons for it. And I haven't heard the most, in my opinion, important reason that we should have a charter commission.
You asked a heck of a lot of questions there, whether they were rhetorical questions or not, but you asked a whole bunch of them that seemed to me that a charter commission should be discussing.
Well, maybe, but I haven't heard anybody bring up the most important question that faces us down right now. And that's, where do we get our money? And I don't care where you are, if you're a municipality, you need money to function. Where's that money going to come from? And should the Board of Selectmen continue to be the Board of Assessors in this town? Or should a charter commission consider having a full-time tax assessor and take a careful look at what we're doing? We got a building down in East Waterboro. It's owned by an institution that's renting space in it for profit that we're getting nothing out of. And we're going to have more of that, and we're not getting anything out of it. how is our tax base being looked at? And I think that that is a very, very important question. And if this deal with the excise tax moves forward in November, we're gonna find ourselves with a lot more serious cash flow problems. So, you know, that probably in the charter is one of the most important aspects. And in all the charter commissions that I've seen, I haven't read that brought forward once.
The other, which you're also kind of nibbling around here, is, you know, we have always said, well, we need a town treasurer. I think we're moving to a point where we need a town finance director, okay, that helps manage the funds in the municipality. We depend on the banks, and the bank, don't get me wrong, I think the banks have done a wonderful job for us, okay? But we don't have, and certainly, you know, Julie has done an excellent job of keeping, you know, things, tabs on things and balancing things and whatnot, but the investments and what are we doing with the financial structure of the municipality, like what are we doing with the assessing of the, so those are two very big keys of where are we going and where is the revenue stream of the municipality.
Well, when you start talking about the charter, you know, and you know, these issues, a lot of private industry have people who manage their money and are there. Well, my daughter-in-law is one of these people. Resource, I don't know, it's about that long name. It got quite a lot of money to it, but it has to do with health insurance plans. It has to do with personnel. It has to do with money. She, in her position, every quarter has to step in to the position of, shall we call it, treasurer for the company she works for several days. I don't know just how it works, but at one point, they found some very serious errors and omissions, okay, because she steps into this position. That's her position to review. And I don't know exactly what you call the position, okay? But I think that, you know, full-time tax assessor, and as you say, Dennis, maybe a money manager to work with it. And then also, when you have plans submitted to the planning board, let's look at these plans and decide, you know, what there should be for tax ramifications from this project, okay? Because even if you can't tax them, maybe we can get service fees out of them.
Sure, there's got to be some level of impact fee or whatever the case may be.
And, you know, the biggest one's that elephant down on the West Road. That trunk keeps getting longer and longer and longer and sucks up more water. And we should be getting a very significant check from that elephant once a month here for the services that we provide to that school. The other 5 towns should be kicking in to our pocket. First off, we ought to be getting back our homestead exemption money. But, you know, these are all things that somebody in the money business would understand.
Lisa, you know,
I don't think that there's ever any governing body that doesn't benefit from occasional external review of what's going on. I don't think the town and I don't think the Board of Selectmen would be any exception to that. I think that a charter commission would benefit the town and the board in the sense that it would provide that external review. And while you could give input to some of the concerns that you would have as a board, and other employees, current employees of the town could give input to that charter review, and then they can get input from the general public, because the general public may not be complaining about anything, doesn't mean that they don't have issues about it. It means that they may have more serious issues in their own home and they're not all that busy complaining about what's going on in the town. But I don't think that we would be hurt by having a charter committee formed and a review done. It may come back as, you know what, right now, given the economic situation, given the difficulty in finding people to participate in things, we're where we should be. We're good and things are good, but they may come back and say, these are 3 or 5 or 7 points that we think really need to be dealt with, and they could be very small things, and there could be 1 or 2 large things. But I don't think it's going to hurt anybody to have a review, an external review of that, done by a group of people that may come from varying backgrounds and have varying points of strength. My biggest concern would be finding the people to fill those positions. And whether it's partially elected and partially appointed, I don't know if that helps or not. I mean, the school board is elected. We had 1 person run. So, it's difficult to get that 1 person. You have to beg, borrow, and steal to get 1 person to run for things. So whether or not you'd find a great wealth of people willing to run for that, I don't know. And whether or not you'd find a great wealth of people willing to be appointed to it. Because it is things like that are very time consuming, and that in itself is not only time consuming, but you have a finite period of time in which you have to accomplish a very large goal. So I think really it's not going to hurt to have that. I think what's going to take your time is finding people to fill the positions to do that. And that's going to be a bigger hurdle for you to cross.
Well, I think you're absolutely right there. Anything else? Well, we'll absorb some of this and see where we're going to go. Thank everybody for your participation. And we've got just a few items here on the agenda to clean up. So why don't we move forward with that? Book signed warrants and bills for payroll.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Minutes of 8:4:09. Approval.
So moved.
All those in favor?
I'm abstaining, I wasn't here.
Agenda for next week, we have a litany of items, right? So why don't you tell us what we have already on this? Okay?
What about the follow-up for the Charter Commission? We shouldn't wait too long. We had the kind of the hearing here. This is one of
Well, why
those
don't we-
things.
Yeah, it's
This is
almost...
one of those things that now is fresh, and we probably should follow it through to some sort of conclusion.
Okay.
So maybe if we put that on the agenda,
How about we call it the Selectmen's Task Force? Or whatever.
yeah, toward,
Anyway,
you
I
could-
just don't, the pre-commission to the Charter Commission, but, what else do we have?
You have an appointment with the Land Trust.
Okay,
You also have a public hearing on a one-day liquor license.
right,
You have you had a committee resignation, but it's been pulled temporarily.
okay.
You have 2 or 3 other things that you have. Oh, what was that thing we talked about today? Oh, how you're going to dispense of town-owned property. It was discussed not to have the land auction. We discussed coming up with a procedure, but that's where it ended. And we do have a request for a lot that was on last year's auction that we still hold.
Okay.
So we need to know.
Jerry
How to
we have an
proceed.
appointment with Jerry?
We have an appointment with Jerry for the county tax as well as the commitment. He said he will be ready.
Okay.
We also need to set up a time to finalize goals and set objectives under those goals and
Yeah, we
and
can-
timelines, et cetera.
Let's put that on old business for us to, we'll establish it, we'll discuss it next Tuesday night, or when we're gonna do that. Ken is coming in with their attorney,
And,
okay, and we're gonna do that in executive session.
yes. And 5:30,
That's at 5:30,
yes.
For the record, I'm abstaining from that law.
okay?
Oh, you also have recognition procedure. Back again.
The public hearing is on, just so everybody's aware, is a one-day liquor license for a caterer.
It's a caterer
Who is
who
doing
has
a-
a liquor license, wants to do an event in town, they need it one day.
So where's the event?
Camp Black and Blue, it's a class reunion.
Anything else in anybody?
The Finance Committee isn't meeting this month. I assume they're probably not going to meet next month. I don't think at this point the Finance Committee knows what their role is. Are they just a budget committee now? Should we meet with them? Should we set some objectives?
We need another member, right? We're one member short. We ought to work to see if we can get someone else, and then really, I think, have a workshop with them to say, hey, what is it? You know, unfortunately, because of the nature of what we've gone through in the last couple of years, with just not a lot of budget to work with, right? I mean, we did all the slicing and dicing, right? It leaves, I guess, leaves them for wanting of what do we do now? right?
Well, the charter says we have to have a Finance Committee, and I think we need to give them
Yep.
some objectives, something to work on this year, something to do.
Yep.
I thought we did that when we were
Well, they do have
setting the
roles, they do have roles and responsibilities, right?
Maybe we ought to take a look at those roles and responsibilities and just reissue it.
But let's at least tee it up and talk about it next week,
Yeah, I think we should.
okay? And whatever else comes on, Pam, we'll have to discuss during the week. Okay? Items needing signature, warrants and bills of payroll in the minutes. Reminders, WAB Business Development Meeting tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. at the Town Hall. Road Review tomorrow night at the Town Hall, 6 p.m. We are looking for members of Road Review. Senior luncheon Thursday, noon, at the Snowmobile Club. 7 p.m. Taylor House Committee at the Taylor House. Friday, the 14th, York County Community Action Fuel Assistance at the Town Hall, 9 to 5. You must have an appointment, right? Water Trustees, Monday night at 6, 12-town group, Monday night at 6:30 here in the Annex.
Could I make an interjection here?
Yeah.
I usually go to that. I'm not going to be able to attend that one.
Okay.
If so someone can come in on that one, I'd appreciate it.
All right, I should be able to do that, John. And the Selectmen's meeting. Business Expo. There will be a Business Expo. I guess that's what this is, right? Fall Foliage Business Expo. Conducted by WAB, Saturday, October 24th. Massabesic High, so more to come on that. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All
Second.
those in favor? Thanks, folks. for-